Welcome to the Ditch the Struggle podcast. I'm your host, Alana Rosso. I'm a graphic designer turned career and success coach who knew I could do better, but kept falling short of where I wanted to go. But after years of exploring personal and career development, business, money mindset, and energy work, I'm here to tell you that yes, you can move from stuck and defeated to empowered and confident. Ready to dive in? Awesome. Together, let's ditch the struggle. Hi, everyone. We have such an exciting episode today because I'm going to share that I think I'm done my personal development work. I think I'm over it all. I think I've reached the pinnacle of achieving the person I need to be, because I just had a conversation with Declan, my husband, a few days ago, and he told me something that is quite remarkable that I almost could not believe. He said to me, wait for it, that I have calmed down. Yeah, apparently I have calmed down since, we met, and we have known each other like over 20 years. So my husband has officially told me, the wife, that I have calmed down. And I don't know if it gets any better than that, guys. I don't know if it's means that I'm just done here, that I can shut this podcast down, that we're just I've learned everything I need to learn. But I really had to laugh so hard because I was not a calm person. Now, in corporate environments, I'm usually really great at being calm. I've always been able to kind of just keep my shit together. And I think that's because I had to learn how to do that. I grew up with what I call, back in the trailer, if you listen to that, a lot of conflict and combat. And I'm going to dive into that a little bit more. So I grew up with a lot of chaos. Now, to be clear, there was no physical combat. There was nothing like that. There were some dicey moments, though. But I grew up in this feeling of chaos that permeated my life, permeated my body, my cells, everything. So I was a very reactive person for a lot of my life. Now, Declan is a complete opposite of me. This is how it usually works, right? He's much more chill. He's the grounded person. And I'm the one that used to just fly around and just be ungrounded and not be able to keep myself together. Now, I had so many stresses and things were difficult, very difficult family dynamic. Now, that is a lot easier now because, and this may sound a little bit harsh, but both my parents are gone now. And so that dynamic has changed a lot. The family dynamic has radically shifted. And the most difficult relationship I've ever had in my entire life was with my mom. So just painful, tumultuous, stressful, toxic. I mean, there was so many things going on. Not to say that I don't, I have a huge appreciation for the relationship now, but I've come through the other side. So I've done a lot of the work, and I'll dive more into that. But let's get back to the fact that I have officially been told that I've calmed down. So what does that mean? Well, it means, quite frankly and quite simply, that I have been able to regulate my nervous system. And that was not the case when I knew him. And I also just want to point out something on the internet. It's always the internet. Instagram was don't meet someone when you're broken or haven't done all your work and figured out your shit until, don't get involved in any kind of long-term relationship. Declan and I were both very broken people in ways, super young, and we managed to figure it out. So I don't like that idea. We're always going to have stuff to do and to work on. And this idea that you just have to wait until you've got it all figured out to be with someone just makes no sense to me. You just have to find the right person. So anyways, he's told me I've calmed down. What that means is, again, my nervous system is regulated. I'm not as reactive, and I do take things a lot more in stride. And I will say, and I talk about this in the conversation I have with Marsha Van Weinsberg, is that when you start moving through your stuff and moving through your triggers and doing the work, you do become allergic to the ways that you used to be. And then when people are like the way you used to be, so super reactive or super freaked out and all that stuff, you have a visceral reaction against it. And so I tend to just really shut down when that happens around me. And in 2021, I was in this situation with some people where it got so heated, and the conflict and combat, I'm physically with them, got so intense and insane. My body, my brain, everything completely wigged out. And I felt like I was back in my 13-year-old body. I felt like I was back in my household. Every single thing that was happening around me was triggering me because it felt like everything I had been through, exact same words were being used. People were wigging out, people screaming, people yelling, like complete and utter chaos. And I had to physically leave the place because I was like, I don't want to go, I can't go back to this feeling. And I was there as a kid for so long, just like these parents that were really incompatible and living together for way too long. So it was just from the age of 5 to 20, it was just like that conflict and combat all the time and never knowing what I was going to come home to, just super stressful. And I want to also be clear, like, there were so many things that were amazing about my childhood, but I also don't want to be that person that's like, well, people had it worse, so therefore I'm going to discount everything I went through. No, it's very real. My experience was my experience is my experience. I could only have the life that I had. That was what I was put into. And a lot of it was difficult. So what happened is that I became a very reactive person, just like mainly with the family dynamic, very argumentative, be upset, could be screamy, could be like slamming doors, all of that. And I grew up with that. My mom's favorite thing to do when she was really upset was to take a hairbrush and smash it on the floor. And we kind of joked years later about how it always ended up being hairbrushes because they had handles, I guess, and they were easy to pick up and smash. But that's not so cool. I mean, her nervous system was not regulated. And now my parents have went through crazy stuff with the way that they grew up because in different countries, they saw really dark, horrible stuff. They went through so much. My dad's from Italy, my mom's from England. They really knew what poverty was as well. So they came with their stuff, their baggage, and they had no idea how to regulate their nervous system. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I've learned about the nervous system so that you can kind of go down your own rabbit hole of that. But this was something my mom did, the hairbrush thing. And one time she did it and the brush broke and then the head of the brush ricocheted and it went into the beautiful antique china cabinet we had from England and smashed the custom glass that was on the front. And that was so expensive to fix. That was not a good day. So I kind of had that role model. I kind of saw that. And my dad would be a very calm person and then explode. So he was just like, didn't say anything, didn't say anything, didn't say anything. And then it would like explode. So there was a lot of dysregulation, there's no other way to put it. And that was what I learned how to do. So I've had to spend most of my life learning to regulate. And we never really talked about the nervous system. I feel like it's really the last 3 years in the personal development world that it's really exploded. Like every coach out there has like a nervous system regulation program. And there's like the somatic exercises to kind of get back into your body and to self-regulate, self-soothe. And this for me has just been huge. I was doing this kind of work before I really had a name for it. I didn't really know that that was what I was trying to do, but I will tell you that if you can start getting a handle on your nervous system, social media becomes so much easier because people are just losing their shit with these comments and, the keyboard warriors and all that. And I can see some of these comments. I was like, yeah, this person's completely dysregulated. And now social media has been set up to dysregulate us so that we're reactive and combative and that there's more divide and all of that. So that's happening. So it's not just our faults, really, that this is all happening, but the ability to, stay calm, I guess, is the ticket. And I mean, I tell you, like, I don't know any woman or anybody out there who likes to be told to calm down. If you had told me to calm down when I was younger, I would not calm down. I would freak up. I would do exactly the opposite and get so mad. I still don't really like being told to calm down. No one does. It's like the most ineffective, criticism it's so stupid. You can't just tell someone to calm down. That's an internal job that the person has to do and then take their deep breaths. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about the nervous system. And then I encourage you to go down this rabbit hole because if you're feeling like you just can't control your emotions, your senses, how you're showing up with anywhere from your coworkers to your kids to your friends, getting back into a more even nervous system experience is going to really help. So let's just break it down. I did a lot of nervous system work in 2023. I actually worked with a coach and I think it was a 12-week program. It was specifically around the nervous system and money. There has been a huge journey through my life of kind of figuring out how to do the whole money thing coming from struggle. And I really wanted to take it up a level in 2023. I did a ton of work just on really becoming way more savvy with money, more financially literate. And I knew that I had to work on my nervous system because what do most people say? It stresses them out. Money stresses them out. Especially, I'm going to say especially creatives, like who just may not have the natural affinity for it. Now, that's not always the case. I think I'm pretty actually good with numbers. But for some of us, it's just like, well, you can't avoid anything. You can't actually avoid your financial situation. Hate to break it to you. So you've got to get into a state that you are feeling calm when you're working with your money. And I wanted to I felt like I'd made so much progress in other parts of my life. I wanted to get a little bit further along there. This makes me think of an amazing little video that was done by Leah Yard. She's someone I interviewed with and had a conversation with in episode 48. She's a jewelry designer in Vancouver. And she had a really funny video of herself on her computer. And the caption was something like, logging into the CRA, and which is the our government finance institute in Canada, and telling myself that I'm not being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. I'm just trying to log into my account and telling my body that it's okay. Basically, like the stress that we go through when we're dealing with finances or dealing with anything that just feels scary, our bodies are going to wig out. And we go into that place of like, oh my God, a tiger's trying to eat me. I'm being chased by a lion or a saber-toothed tiger. Yeah, we just have to learn how to regulate that. And often our bodies don't know the difference of what's happening. We think we're in that, fight or flight situation. So let me just break it down to kind of three states to the nervous system. Now, the book I do recommend that I personally read when I was doing this deep dive is called Our Polyvagal World, How Safety and Trauma Change Us. And this is by Stephen W. Porges and Seth Porges. I got it from the library. I listened to the audiobook. I'm not going to lie. It is a little dry, but I wanted to understand what is going on with my body and my brain when I'm in these stress responses. Again, we know about fight or flight. I'm going to break it down a little bit into a bit more. But what is going on? So getting into the polyvagal theory is really helpful because then you can start to identify what the hell is happening to you in any given moment and certain things that trigger you. Triggers are your friend. Triggers are giving you feedback of where your trauma is, where you haven't really processed stuff. A lot of childhood stuff is going to come up. I was completely triggered in that situation in 2021 when there was all the screaming and yelling. I was like, oh my God. And in that case, removing myself physically from the situation was absolutely the right thing to do. So, getting back to the polyvagal theory, a little bit of Google research here so I could break it down simply. It is that the nervous system has three states: the ventral vagal, the sympathetic, and the dorsal vagal. And I'm going to explain what these are. Okay, so the ventral vagal. This state is associated with feelings of safety and connection, promoting social interaction and emotional regulation. It is the rest and digest response where the body is calm and relaxed. So this is when you're having a groove with your friends, when you're in play. That's also a social engagement experience. It was really interesting for me to figure out that when you're doing something in play, especially in that creative state, you actually are naturally going into the ventral vagal state. So that's another reason why it's really important to put play and creativity into our life. But this ventral vagal state is when things are good. So rest and digest, life is okay. And then we have the sympathetic, which is fight or flight. So we hear a lot about fight or flight, but that's really just talking about the sympathetic. So this state prepares the body for action in response to perceived danger or stress, leading to increased heart rate, rapid breathing, and heightened senses. So again, logging into your CRA account or going to your bank or having to confront someone from your childhood, whatever it is, fight or flight is your body freaking out. So this is when my husband was saying that I've calmed down. So I'm moving away from fight or flight, the freaking out, the knee-jerk reaction to things. Okay, so that's the sympathetic. The dorsal vagal is the freeze/shutdown. And I think a lot of people can relate to this, especially if you're going through burnout. You'll definitely be in this freeze or shutdown state. This state is triggered by overwhelming or prolonged threats, resulting in a state of disconnection and immobilization where the body shuts down to conserve energy. This is like, my body can't do anymore. I'm in shock. I'm stressed out. I've had too much ongoing or long-term stress. I can't do this. I'm frozen. Or you're in a severe trauma state, right? So we're moving, what's interesting to think about is that we're actually moving from the ventral vagal, okay, that's that safety feeling, to the sympathetic, where we're fight or flight, to the dorsal vagal, the shutdown all the time. So what is interesting about when I read that Polyvagal World book and the polyvagal theory is that there's really a ladder that we're moving up and down throughout these states. So it's like, it's a little bit more fluid than we think. We're moving in and out of them multiple times a day at all times in different interactions with different people, different experiences. So you're moving in and out of it. And the trick or the challenge is to become conscious of how your body is moving through it at any given time. So this usually shows up as very physical reactions. And so anyone in an anxiety state, I've talked a lot about my physical experiences of anxiety. It's that fight or flight. I get the coldness, the shakiness, the upset stomach. I will physically kind of like I can see myself shaking if it's really bad. And the brain fog. I actually also a big sign for me of that when I'm out of alignment or I'm starting to feel anxiety, even if I'm not conscious of it, is that I start bumping into things or dropping things. That is the first clue for me is like if I'm dropping things and I'm just whacking myself all around the house, which happens all the time. I often have a bruise around me. That is me being like out of alignment and being in this kind of sympathetic state and just like the anxiety is kicking up, even if I'm not conscious of it. So it's so great though when you do become conscious of it. It's like, oh, okay, this is like I need to just now do some regulation and I need to like get into some of my tools that I've talked about before, right? So the interesting thing is that you can change your states. You can really become aware of it and start to shift out of them. There's a great quote I had here when I was doing the studying of this nervous system course, and that is this. So, the optimal balance of parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems allows you to respond with resilience to the ups and downs of life. That is a quote by Ariel Schwartz. So, the parasympathetic is when you're in that ventral vagal, like you're chilled out. If you get a massage and you actually fully be able to relax, that's like an example of being the parasympathetic. And the sympathetic is when you're kind of moving and going and doing stuff, right? Like working and getting into that. So, if you can balance the two of them, then that's your ability to kind of move through life with the resilience, go through the ups and downs, and again, not freak out when things around you start going crazy. So we're in a time now where it feels like everything has gone crazy. The world is wild out there. So how can you regulate your nervous system? Some of the things that I have done, well, there's a whole bunch of supplements that I do kind of lean into when I'm dealing with the nervous system and regulating it. My number one is always, I say this, is ashwagandha. So, for example, if I see that I'm kind of dropping stuff, bumping into stuff, feeling a little off, the first thing I do is I will actually take an ashwagandha. It's not medical advice. It's just something that I personally do. And I was like, okay, I need to kind of get centered again. Breathing exercises, meditation, often going for a walk. So it's recognizing when you're wigging out. And I'm kind of embarrassed to look back to how I operated in my teens, 20s, probably 30s, how dysregulated I was all the time. So this is part of the reason I have gotten so much into personal development work is that I had to regulate. I had to get myself back on track because the more regulated you are, again, you can respond to things differently and you can just move through life differently. And so I think that's really what Declan was saying is that you're just moving through things differently, not nearly as reactive. Now, as I said, I don't have as many triggers as I used to. Okay, so that relationship I had with my mom, that's not in my life anymore. That is such a huge thing. I had one conversation, there was a interview I did, and we were chatting after the recording stopped, and this person had a very challenging relationship with their mom. It sounded so similar to what I had gone through. And she's in it. She's like, she's still really in it, whereas obviously I've kind of moved through it, and it did a lot of work to do that and forgiveness work on both sides. And I just said, yeah, you know what? To be honest, it's easier now. It's easier now that she is no longer here. And again, that may sound harsh to someone who hasn't gone through what I went through. But actually, I would say that to my mom if she was sitting right here because we, in the end, kind of understood each other. And I'm very much at peace with the relationship I had with her, and I think vice versa. but I don't have nearly the same triggers in my life that I would have had 10 years ago. So it is easier for me to be this calmer version of myself. So some of it is removing yourself from external situations and external triggers, right? Staying in the toxic job, what's that going to do to your nervous system? Like you can try and navigate it for sure and do all the things, but there is a point where you have to remove yourself from situations, peoples, and environments that are having a negative effect on your nervous system. Like that is the harsh truth sometimes. Um, you can do all the things and do all the regulation and meditate all day and breathe and go in there with a positive attitude and put white light around yourself before you go into any environment. That's all going to help. But there's also sometimes the point where you just have to be like, you have to exit that ring, right? So um, I will say that if you are struggling with kind of feeling like you can get through the day, diving into nervous system work is what I think can be super beneficial. I'm going to be having more people on the show to talk about the nervous system. I think we could talk about it all day. I know Danielle Laporte, who's a pretty well-known coach. She's from Vancouver. She's Canadian. She has a whole program called the Nourish System for working on your nervous system. And just start reading about it. And once you become, again, that aware, like every time you do something that you know is gonna trigger you, like, okay, actually, how am I feeling right now? Can I do something to make this experience a little easier? Can I bring the chamomile cup of tea with me? Can I just have the walk before I do this? Can I make sure that I'm not going to be disturbed when I have to do this kind of stressful thing or have this conversation? And then regulating your breathing, regulating your body so that you feel as calm as possible. And I would say this to people going into job interviews. I did a lot of job interview preparation coaching. And my number one thing was like, make sure you get yourself as physically comfortable as you possibly can before you go into this stressful experience. Like, even if the interview goes well, it's stressful. You're going to be sweating and you're going to be like, so for me, it was like making sure you're not rushed before the interview, that you are, this was huge, in a comfortable outfit that you feel really good in. Don't put yourself into an ill-fitting suit or something that you think you should wear because it's what you should wear and you feel completely like not yourself. You need to feel as comfortable as you possibly can. You have to stack the cards in your favor. Have your favorite cup of tea nearby, have your notes nearby. Keep the environment and the experience as comfortable as possible so that your nervous system is as calm as possible going into a stressful situation. And it sounds really obvious, but how many times do we just throw ourselves into experiences without thinking it through and not giving our bodies times to adjust? And this whole work with the nervous system and being connected to it and understanding, for me, has been an appreciation for how my body works, respect for my body, learning to acknowledge what's going on with me physically and not ignoring it, because a lot of people, including myself, were really good at ignoring the cues, and your body's wigging out and it's trying to tell you something, it's trying to tell you something, it's trying to tell you something, and you're like, I'm not going to listen to you because I'm too busy. I've got too much on my plate. I'm too stressed, blah, blah, blah. And then what's going to happen? You're going to break down, you're going to get chronic pain, all these things, and some of which I'm still kind of working through. Listen, me and my body still have a lot to figure out and a lot of conversations to be had and a lot of stuff to process. By virtue of the fact that just a few years ago, in that position, in that 2021 situation I was in, that's not that long ago. And the fact that like I instantly went back in time and felt the way I did as a child is wild to me. It's like, that is proof that your body does not forget. Your cells do not forget. They are listening. Your nervous system is impacted by all of those experiences. That's why we can't downplay the things that we went through, even if people have had it worse than us. We still need to work through our stuff. And I enjoy the process of working through my stuff. Sometimes people call it shadow work. It's like diving into the stuff. Like the people in my world, in my life, they tend to be the ones that want to go and figure this stuff out. That's why we're having these conversations. That's why I love having guests on the show to talk about this stuff. I want to walk through this. I want to kind of get through the other side. And it was kind of a small, funny thing that Declan said to me. I was like, okay, I feel like I've made some progress here. So that is, those are the little wins that we can live for. And knowing that he's so calm most of the time, like he must feel like it complements the household, right? It's like we're now having more calm energy into the house. We're having more grounded energy into the house. And That's what I want more of. I don't want the conflict and combat. I'm moving away from that. I don't want to have that. Again, I've become almost allergic to it. And when I see it, especially on social media, it's like, yeah, I'm just shutting down. You got to check yourself before you wreck yourself. Remember that really funny scene with Zach Galifianakis in Due Date? I needed to check myself before I wrecked myself because I was going down kind of like not a great path and not feeling good about myself. So diving into the nervous system work, that is where it's at, guys. Again, the book is called Our Polyvagal World. Then you can also just put in the word polyvagal into your Audible or your library app. I'm obsessed with my library app. You're just going to get so many books out there that are about the nervous system that can tremendously help you. And you don't need to get to the point where necessarily you feel calm all the time. That's not it. It's just recognizing what state you're in, and sometimes being in the free shutdown mode is appropriate for what you're going through. Sometimes you need to be in fight or flight, and then sometimes hopefully you're in the ventral vagal, which is that safety and connection feeling more of the time. That's really what I'm just trying to go for. It's like, am I going to be in that state more than I was? That's progress, guys. That's where we need to go. And that feels like it's winning at life, right? Take care, guys. Thank you for joining me today on Ditch the Struggle. You showing up here means so, so much to me. To dig deeper into the topics discussed today and to learn about my work, visit alanarosa.com. And don't forget to download your free resources while you're there. And if this episode resonated with you, please share with others who also want to ditch the struggle. Go ahead and subscribe to the podcast, leave a rating and a review, and let me know what you'd like to see more of on this podcast. And before I go, I want to leave you with my 3 favorite ways to ditch the struggle. Be your own best advocate, take baby steps for the win, and forget about a linear career path. It's overrated and you are doing just fine. See you next time.